My name is Wendy. I had herpes encephalitis in 1999 at the age of 44, and my life was changed forever. I remember the lowest moments, the moments when my self-respect and self-worth were lower than zero, when just surviving and continuing for another day was a challenge. My husband and kids kept the house and made the meals, and my parents babysat me daily. At that time, self-empowerment was not a priority. Just getting through another day was tough enough. When I was permitted to be left alone during daytime hours, I did a lot of sitting and struggling through many emotional ups and downs. Each evening, my husband would encourage me to accompany him to walk our dog around the block. Once each week, my dad would come down during the afternoon, and we would walk to a nearby coffee shop. Did I enjoy these walks? No, not at first. These walks pulled me out of my shell, out of the safety zone of my own home, and I would have much preferred to have stayed home. A friend who I had not seen for a number of years heard about my illness. Melanie pledged to visit me every Thursday. At first, she would bring muffins and fruit, and we would sit and have lunch together. After a few months, she began taking me out to a local coffee shop so that I would have the opportunity to do any small bits of shopping needed for the house. 14 years later, Melanie and I still do lunch, but now I'm able to drive to her house. Friendships didn't always succeed. Previous to encephalitis, I had been a very active woman. I worked full-time, took Girl Guides camping, and volunteered constantly. I played penny poker with friends every Thursday evening. Post-encephalitis, my poker friend encouraged me to return to playing, and she started picking me up every Thursday evening. As we sat around one woman's dining room table, I just couldn't keep up. These women were talking, playing cards, smoking, drinking, and snacking simultaneously, and I could hardly believe I had ever had the ability to do the same. After trying for 4 weeks, I had to call my friend and tell her no more. It wasn't that I was constantly losing at penny poker that bothered me. It was just that I couldn't keep up with all of the interacting. To this day, it concerns me that I hurt my friend deeply, as we no longer socialize. There came a time post-encephalitis when I wanted to do more. I was just realizing that I couldn't sit home all day every day. My first attempt was not a good one. Previous to my encephalitis, I had been teaching living skills to new Canadian residents in a class that I had created entitled Hello Canada. I had been contacted by a previous student to see if I could return to coming to their home on a weekly basis. I said, "Sure, I'll come to your house next week." As days passed, I realized that I was not going to make it to their house. My self-confidence was non-existent, and I was riddled with worry, fear, and concern. How could I do this? Every week? The day before our first class, I bought a bunch of flowers and attached a note with apology that I would not be able to teach them. I left this on their doorstep, and I've never heard from them again. So now I knew I had to start smaller, much smaller. One day when walking home from shopping, another woman was walking down the street in the same direction. I'm not sure what caused each of us to say hello and start a conversation, but we did. It turned out that June lived around the corner and 3 doors away from me. We started out walking together once or twice a week, then moved on to meeting for tea or lunch once a week. There were some weeks at first when my self-confidence was so low I'd have much rather stayed home. But having made a date with June, I would push myself to get out and socialize. June, of course, never met the old Wendy, and she often says that she sees absolutely nothing wrong with me. June and I are still best friends and meet weekly for lunch and a chat. This friendship, which was born post-encephalitis, has been so very empowering. I did continue to want to do more. A local charity was having a fundraising 10K run, and the planning committee was seeking volunteers. I signed up 2 weeks before the run and was a bucket of nervous anticipation. On the day of the event, I was given a hat and a name tag to show I was on staff. Then I was assigned to a certain spot on the run to offer bottles of water to runners as they passed by. As I stood handing out the bottles with a smile, each runner smiled back at me. Most of them said thank you as they ran past. They were thanking me. Oh, I was so empowered. I was sorry when the day ended. I insisted on helping the people clean up and pack up when the event was finished, and they thanked me again. I came home with such a smile on my face. It had been a challenge, but I'd done it. And the best thing was, not one of the people there knew anything about my encephalitis. They had welcomed me as Wendy. No one had kept an eye on me, monitored me, or supervised me. I had encouraged each runner as he or she went past, and damn it, I felt so good about doing so. Helping at that 10K run was where I first learned that the most self-empowering thing to do is to help others. Mary Pickford once said, "You may have a fresh start any moment you choose, for this thing we call failure is not the falling down, but the staying down." J.B. Lightfoot said, "Try to help others. Strive to raise them up, and by doing so, you will most effectually raise yourself up also." You can check out your local newspaper for local groups who seek assistance. Is there a local school or a church who are having a social event and need volunteers? Is there a local seniors' home who may be planning a spring cleanup for their garden? Does your local library welcome volunteers to read books to children or seniors or vision-impaired people? Is there a young family in your neighborhood who would love for you to play with their children out in the backyard while their mom makes dinner? Choosing to help others can be a great way to take your first step. I would recommend that your first volunteer assignment should be for a specific one-day event, perhaps sports day at your local school, rather than a long-term commitment such as reading at the library. Doing for others is very, very self-empowering. You can do it.